Hey everyone. If you think you're seeing deja vu or think you're seeing double, chances are you probably aren't. This is definitely a repeat of the intro for a previous video that I made for the Yarn Boal. But I wanted to come back and revisit the other half of this piece of wood and show you what I made with that. So again, I started the same way as I did the previous one. I did use a worm screw on this one. Again, I kind of wanted to give it a chance, I suppose. And just my luck, both pieces turned just fine with the worm screw. So I don't know what my fear was at least, but here I'm loading the worm screw into the bolt chuck. Threading on the piece of wood. Adjust the tailstock and the rest. Get it all spiffied up into the position I need it to be. And away we go. I will say this one did give me a little bit of trouble. The wood was a bit softer and not as the wood was not in the condition that I had expected it to be. Let's just say that. So as you see in the video moving forward, you'll see kind of what I mean. I kind of had to take some evasive action and just to be able to try to save the piece a little bit. Starting with my 5/8 inch bowl gouge to give a nice rough cut to the outside edge. I had originally hoped to make a second yarn bowl with this piece of wood, but it just really didn't work out that way. So I decided it was going to be nice enough for at least its own video so you could see the process, if nothing else. The bark on these particular pieces sure did like to fly across the room a bit, so you can see a little bit of it hanging off the edge here on this part as I round down the bottom of the bowl. You can see it kind of flapping in the wind there. There it is, just flapping away at the rest. Now I did go with a tenon for this one as well. It is the same wood, so it kind of works about the same as what it did on the Yarn Boal. A little soft in some spots, a little hard in others. And just shaping up the tenon now. You'll notice I'm checking that crack rather closely. That comes into play a little bit later. You notice I'm using a pair of calipers and marking the width of my tenon. This is for the chuck itself. Make sure that you kind of have the right size. there's many ways in which you can do that. I just happen to use a pair of calipers and just eyeball it for the most part. Squaring up the corner, trying to get it nice and clean. And as I'm working, I'm really thinking about that crack, and I realized that I probably should do something about it, because my inkling was that it more than likely went all the way through the bowl, and I wasn't wrong. So I decided to go ahead and fill this side up first. I used a product called Milliput. Milliput is made for wood. It is an epoxy-based material that kind of feels and acts like a real stiff kind of Play-Doh. So I just filled in the crack with the Milliput, and I have to say I really like this stuff. It performs very well. It polishes up nicely. It sands easy. It cuts easy. You can't go wrong with it if you're looking for something to fill some cracks. It also comes in multiple colors, which I really like as well. I plan on getting more colors as we go. If you're interested in Milliput, I've left a link down in the description for you to check out. So I highly recommend Milliput if it's something that would work for you in your projects. So once that was cured and finished up, I had to go back and recut. So I ended up losing a little bit of height on the bowl itself. But I figured I wanted to at least try to save the wood as opposed to throwing it out. Shaping up the bottom edge, getting it all cleaned up. I did switch over to the 1/2-inch bowl gouge for the more fine details. Getting those edges nice and cleaned up. Now, one of the things I do is I do sharpen my tools in between cuts sometimes. I usually do that off camera because it takes a couple extra minutes. If you're interested in seeing how I sharpen my tools, I'm happy to post something up on it. It's a very quick process. I use a jig assembly. I can share the information at some point if you're interested. Just shoot me a comment down below and I'll work on putting something together for you. Now that the back is shaped up nicely, went ahead and moved it around to turn the inside of the bowl. Taking it off of the worm screw and then slotting it into the bowl chuck. Now these are just 50mm jaws for the chuck. I am looking at getting a 70mm. It's like you have a 50 and 100 and 130mm, but where is that in between? And there is a 70mm out there. It's like just the right in between size. Something on my list to get. Again, same process as before. If you've been watching my videos, you'll notice that I use the step approach. Again, the Process here is just to make little ledges so that the bowl gouge can sit on that ledge and not drift off. Sometimes the wood wants to grab a hold of that edge and just drag the tool right across the wood. I can tell you, when you're working on trying to finish a piece and that tool drags across the surface, man, you have no choice but to go back over it. One of those many mistakes you make as you learn. And what's learning if we don't make mistakes? It's starting to sound like Bob Ross. It's a happy little accident. Again, stepping down, checking my depth. Get my little depth gauge. If you're interested in a dedicated video of some of the little tools and jigs that I use, shoot me a comment. I'm happy to put something together for that as well. I could always throw it into the sharpening video. Sharpening only takes a few minutes, so not much to share. So I could always do something a little bit larger with extra tools. If you're interested, again, just hit me in the comments. Along with the comments, I wanted to thank everybody who watches these videos and posts comments. I do read every single one, and I try to respond as much as possible. So I do thank you very much for the time that you spend watching these. It's exciting watching your channel grow. Nice gratuitous interior shot of a cut into the wood. I slowed this down just for you guys. As I keep getting deeper and deeper, I'm paying close attention to that crack. Again, using the Easy Wood Tools carbide tip. Nice round carbide tip. I absolutely love these tools. I did decide to go ahead and fill this crack. As I mentioned earlier, it does go all the way through the bowl. It just didn't want to cooperate. And so I felt that it was necessary to, again, take action and just fill it. Get it nice and solid and locked in place. That way it didn't split apart on me during the turn. Millie Putt to the rescue. Again, this stuff is amazing. It is a 2-part epoxy. You have to cut 2 equal parts of this. And you knead it together for 5 minutes. I usually set a timer for myself and knead it, knead it, knead it. Your hands kind of get a little sore after a while. But it's all worth it. Definitely worth it. I also filled a couple of other spots that I thought might look nice with the Millie Putt in place. Again, it cuts really, really easy. I used another carbide tool for this. There you have it. Nice and clean inside. On the depth a little bit more, trying to make sure I get that shape and feel. I use my fingers to feel the thickness of the wall, the outside wall. There are some tools that you can use to give you a bit of a visual reference on the thickness of the wall. But I just go by my fingers. They're the best calipers in the world. So, well, not my fingers. I mean, everybody's fingers. Your hands. You got to trust the hands. That's what I'm trying to say. So I wanted to kind of keep and accentuate a couple of the imperfections on the outside edge of the bowl. So I grabbed my knife and got rid of some of the extra bits of wood that were kind of hanging off the edges and just overall cleaned it up. I really like the look of imperfection in a turned piece when it comes to a raw piece of wood like this. There's something nice about it. I don't know, aesthetically pleasing. The look and feel, it's a bit rustic, earthy, I guess. I was careful not to peel too much off. What I did to preserve that was I grabbed some super glue to seal up some of the leftover bits of bark that were still there, just to kind of harden them up and get them kind of locked in place so they wouldn't come off later. Lots and lots of super glue. Smooth it out, get it nice and settled in. Now, because this bowl is not going to be used for food generally, I figured it was safe to kind of use whatever chemicals I wanted on it. Super glue is not something that you're supposed to have in contact with food or direct contact with food, so I figured this was safe. A bit of sanding. I started with 80 grit to give it a nice clean surface. Worked my way on up to 400 grit on this. And that's both inside and outside of the bowl. Now to finish this piece, I went a little bit different. I have some leftover Garnet Shellac that I think looks really pretty with certain types of wood. And I thought it might give this a nice, rich, deep color and feel to it. Again, something a little bit different than what I usually do, but I wanted to kind of accentuate some of the imperfections, and this shellac seemed to do a pretty good job with that. Garnet is the color of the shellac. There's different colors you can get. This one is one of the darker tones. I also like the blonde colors, a little bit more yellow. They also may have a neutral shellac that you can get. Now this is a 3-pound cut, I believe, for those that are familiar with shellac. I mix my own shellac. I use the shellac shavings with grain alcohol. I prefer the grain alcohol again. That way, if I'm going to use the shellac for any sort of food-based finish, I want to make sure that chemicals are safe as well. Shellac is food safe, so if you're not sure, definitely look it up. Something that I've done my own reading on just to make sure that I'm doing the right things. Again, this piece is not for food, so anything goes here. I did give it 4 full coats of shellac, and I gave it a little bit of a luster and shine. And I feel that it brought out some of the color in the wood very, very nicely. Take it out of the bolt chuck. And then I load up the mini coal jaws. This is an 8-inch coal jaw set. That's used for holding a piece so that you can turn it without too much issue. Now, you have to be kind of careful with this. The chucks do have a speed limitation, so you want to work slow and easy on the wood. So you want to kind of work it gently. That way you don't get a whole lot of catching or anything like that, because the piece can fly off the coal jaws if you're not careful. So nice, gentle, easy passes. So I'm going to take it very slow here. Nice shallow passes, just keeping it easy. I'm only running at about 400 or 500 RPM, I think. I could probably go a little bit faster with it, but with this particular piece is fragile to begin with, so I wanted to kind of take it easy. It did work out quite nicely, I think. Cut the foot, get it all ready to go. And then a final sanding, and then my brand. Unfortunately, I was not able to get the branding on video. My camera ran out of space, unbeknownst to me. So I did at least get a shot of the brand once it was in. Again, just going through the same grits up to 400. I didn't go too high with this one. Shellac tends to give you a nice smooth surface anyway, so. A little dust off. And then like magic, there it is, the brand. Final finish, a little bit of shellac, couple more coats. Shellac tends to dry fairly quickly depending on your environment. I usually give mine about 10 to 20 minutes in between coats. Usually is just enough. You have to be careful with your coatings because you can actually take off previous layers. So you can wait a little bit longer so it'll harden more. Final look of the piece. Nice shallow bowl. I suppose you could use it for just about anything. There you have it. Thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great day.